What's up, you guys? It's Tess. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. So I've had a few questions lately, wanting to know more about how I actually got the job I have now. I know when you're in SD school, the actual concept of landing a job kind of seems so far away, and you're just kind of not sure while you're in school how you're actually going to go out and secure that job. So I want to let you guys know it was actually much easier than I expected. So I wanted to share kind of my story of how I secured the job I have now. And I actually dug through my email and wanted to read the letter I sent out to this employer at the time when I had realized I really wanted to work there. So I wanted to share that with you. Maybe it inspires you, and I just want to help. So I hope this video does help. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm actually going to link a few other advice videos below because maybe that will help. But thank you guys so much for your love and support. It really pushes me and gets me excited to want to film the next video. It gives me ideas, so I really appreciate all of your comments. Thank you so much, and let's just get into the video. Let's start at the beginning. So it all really started with, let's see, I was working at E-News at the time. I was on a holiday break and I decided to get a facial when I had some downtime to relax. I had heard from a coworker that this place called Credo was really wonderful. She was somebody who worked on the style side of things, and Credo was really starting to get some momentum as people were talking about clean beauty. And I was so intrigued by that because I'd always been so obsessed with makeup. I'd always had a passion for skin and skincare, but the concept of clean beauty was so new, and it was just not perfected at the time. It was something that natural food stores were working on, but the worlds were always so separate to me. It seems like there was Sephora, and then there was kind of like Whole Foods' beauty department. So I'd heard a lot about Credo. It does have the Tata Harper Spa, which is very well known. She's a really recognized brand. A lot of celebrities use Tata Harper. So I just thought this would be a fun spa to go to kind of relax, and I thought it had a good reputation, and I was interested in learning more about clean beauty. So I went in for my facial, and little did I know this facial was about to change my life. So I remember this whole experience, and it's so interesting now being in that treatment room. But I just remember going in, and I remember really strongly the connection I formed with my esthetician. She doesn't really work at Credo, and if she did now, I would love to sit down and talk to her and tell her how she changed my life. While I was on the bed, she was basically informing me about the products they used, telling me kind of the story behind each product, how certain ingredients would affect my skin. It was a relaxing experience. It was informative. I felt like it was personal. I felt so like cared for and safe in that moment. And I don't know if she was annoyed because I had so many questions about every ingredient she was using. Like, I was definitely that client that didn't close their eyes and relaxed. I was just really excited by it. And I remember telling her when I was in the treatment room, well, I remember asking, like, how do you even become I didn't even know what it was called. I was like, how do you even do what you do? And she's like, oh, well, you do have to go to school for it. And I never even knew there was such a thing as going to school to become an esthetician. And I was kind of just in this world where I was really focused on advancing my career. I'd worked so hard and built this resume of so many solid companies, and just had really grinded since before college. I had internships, I had really good jobs, and kind of worked on the corporate side of things. I'd worked in magazines, I'd worked for fashion designers, I worked for media companies. So that was just kind of all I knew, and I always had an interest in beauty, but it was always attached to kind of a career that I thought would mean something to the outside world. So I was just always so focused on having these jobs that I don't know if I ever really took the time to enjoy them. I was honestly anxious for so much of my career, wondering if I was doing the right things, saying the right things, and I just never felt really at home in what I was doing. I could never really walk away from a day and say, like, that was amazing, I loved what I did today, I'm proud of what I did. And I definitely hadn't realized all of this at this point. I was just a person going in for a facial, really liking what I had experienced in the treatment room. So I remember telling my esthetician, that's so interesting, I'm so interested in the ingredients aspect of it, I love this whole experience. And I told her, maybe I'll go to Esty school one day. And I remember leaving Credo and having her say to her coworker, we might have a future Esty on our hands one day. And I just didn't think much of it. I went back to my old job for months, and I just carried about with what I was doing. It wasn't until I really kind of hit a wall in the workplace and just had that moment. I don't know if you guys have had this in a job, but just that experience where you realize like you have nothing left to give to a job, you're worn down. It was the type of job which was wonderful in so many ways, and I met so many amazing people I'm still friends with, but it was just that kind of job where you are kind of chained to your desk, and you know, I think it's kind of easy to lose your sense of like needing to be connected to a job. And I know I sound like such a millennial for saying that, but I kind of just felt like I had lost any kind of interest in what I was doing, and I knew I couldn't go on any further. So I knew I had to take a step back from that job. I ended up leaving a really wonderful team and a really wonderful opportunity I know so many people would be so lucky to have, and that I'd worked really hard for, but I just knew I couldn't move forward. I had nothing left to give. So I ended up moving back home. I ended up pursuing real estate on the side because I knew it would be something that was provided a secure future for me. At the back of my mind, I still have this interest in becoming an esthetician, and I slowly but surely started to research schools, call schools, kind of ask what they were about, set up tours. I had a friend who was an esthetician, and I always loved asking her questions. Hey Lauren, if you're watching. And I always just remember thinking like her having that knowledge to help people with their skin was so cool. So I remember just finally taking the tour, really liking the school I visited, and I ended up signing up. I was actually on a wait list at first. It was a long time before I actually found out I got into the school. I remember even going to the first day of school, still being on the wait list and being so unsure of what was going to happen. Finally, they let me in. And then from there, I just kind of moved forward. I never really, outside of my one friend, knew anybody who had made it a career. So to my family, to my friends, it made sense because I'd always loved kind of taking care of my skin and their skin and helping with recommendations, but at the same token, it was still kind of such a departure for me. They just looked at this girl who had been so focused on her career, to kind of take a step back from all that I had kind of built up was just, I think it was kind of shocking, but maybe refreshing for them to see me pick something that made sense for me and that they could tell was going to be potentially rewarding, and kind of pursuing that. And it was just for me. It was purely for me. It wasn't to feed my ego. It wasn't to make anyone else happy. So that was just a really cool step for me personally. So I wanted to share with you guys the letter I wrote to Credo. And this is just to give you an idea of how you maybe can reach out even while you're in school. And so I don't know, I'll just read it. You guys let me know what you think. Okay, so I said, "Hi there, Kristen." I don't think Kristen even was the right person to reach out to. It was just a contact I had found when I looked up like Credo contact information. I think she maybe works at headquarters, so it wasn't quite the right place, and somehow it found its way into the right hands. But maybe do a little better research than I did about getting it to the specific person you want to reach. So maybe it's the manager of the spa, something like that. So I said, "Hey there, Kristen. I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to introduce myself and perhaps see if you or an associate would have time for an informational interview at your San Francisco location at your convenience. I am a recent esthetician graduate from Skyline College and will be taking my state board exam this summer. I have also taken 4 advanced courses at Concepts Institute with Michelle Fallon and will soon obtain my clinical esthetician certificate." So they probably didn't need my whole life story, but I basically wanted to, I think it's good to suggest an informational interview. That way you come across as someone who simply wants to learn more. It's less pressure on you. You make it clear that it's at their convenience. You know they're busy, and it is asking them to take time out of their day to meet with you. But I did reach out to a few prospective jobs. When I did my search, Credo was definitely number 1 in my mind, but of course you need to consider all of your options, and then you can make the best decision for you. So in this way, you're kind of not assuming anything, but you're kind of just asking if they would be open to telling you more. At this point, I didn't even have my license, like I said. You could still be in school. You're just wanting to know more about the job. That way, I think it's a nice step even while you're in school, because it just gives you an actual image of what a spa is like, and it's just not this like faraway dream so much. So it's really great to dream, but I think you do have to set certain goals out for yourself, and you have nothing to lose with an informational interview. This is just one step in making your dreams more of a reality and something you can actually picture, along with a person you can actually imagine as your boss, or workplace maybe you get to see. It just makes everything a little bit more real. So I said, "My first facial at Credo was the reason I decided to pursue a career as an esthetician. I felt such a strong bond with my esthetician. She was knowledgeable, personable, and made me feel that I was in confident, capable hands. I left the spa and began immediately researching and touring schools with the goal of one day working at Credo in mind. I have a background in marketing, my former positions being social media editor at both E! News and The Hollywood Reporter. I've also had experience working in PR representing Caudalie and NARS. I would love to be considered should any opportunities arise in support of Credo, should an esthetician role become available. I have a multifaceted skill set within the beauty realm and a very diverse background, and I would love to explore how I can support Credo. I have attached my resume and can absolutely provide references or a letter of recommendation from Michelle upon request. Thank you kindly, and I hope to connect." Then I attached the PDF version of my resume, and I put my contact phone number. So I know I can get kind of carried away with details, but I think what was effective with this email was just telling my story. Everyone has one, and maybe you didn't have a facial that inspired you to go to SD school, but everyone has a story. So I think with these cover letters, it's so easy to just send out the same thing to every job, and I think people can kind of sense that when they read it. So what I intended was just to show that this job would hold special meaning to me. I had a very different background from that of an esthetician, so I made that clear up front. I kind of let them know where I was at. I let them know I had graduated school, but I hadn't quite obtained my license. I think it's always good to go into interviews kind of being clear about where you are at. Sorry, I'm not speaking English, but make it clear about your experience. Definitely don't lie, because people will find out. There's so much available with LinkedIn. So just be upfront. Make it clear that you're very hardworking. If you have had other jobs in the past, I think it's just good to kind of let them know that you've been accountable, and other jobs you've been responsible. You have references and contacts who will back you up and say you are an enjoyable, hardworking employee to have on their team. So that was basically what I sent out. I remember getting a response almost immediately, which I was so surprised. So from that point, once you've sent out your cover letter, so for me, this was just an email. Maybe you send a shorter email and you have like a document of your cover letter attached, either way. So from this point, I actually set up the informational interview with my prospective boss. So I met with her. She was very accommodating. She was actually willing to meet me right away, which is very, very nice of her. I'm sure that's not the case everywhere, but the jobs I did reach out to, people were most definitely willing to meet with me. And while I was in school, I just kind of thought that would be such a burden for them to take time out of their day to talk to me. But for them, it's investing in team members, building their team, meeting people who are just starting their foray into the workplace. At that point, they don't necessarily have like bad habits. So you're actually a very like appealing candidate. So I hope that helps. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. I love kind of gathering those, and maybe we could make a part 2 to the Q&A I already filmed. So I'll link that down below. I get a few DMs asking for advice, and my best advice is to watch that advice video. And again, comment below if you have any questions I haven't answered. I'm sure there's a ton, so even if there's some that I've kind of touched on and you would love for me to dive into them more, I'd love to do that. So just let me know what you guys want to see in my next video. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. It makes me smile. So thank you so much.